Viewer discretion is advised.
Mark Lazary is a billionaire hedge fund manager, along with Wes Edens, another finance guy who was in with the Lehman Brothers early on, and that didn't go bad or anything. These two keep just as low profile as the Bucks themselves. I wonder how long it takes until Giannis pulls a Lou Alcindor. Hey Bucks, how are you? Not much to trigger here, except way back 40 years ago, you also let one of the all-time greats go to Los Angeles, then Lou Alcindor. He did win you a championship, your only one in 1971, but then he was the one that didn't want to freeze to death in Wisconsin. I guess that cheese wasn't as appealing as the sun and fun of LA. You haven't won a division title since 2001, and it kind of just seems you exist in this league versus actually being successful. Dear Milwaukee Bucks, did you know that the last time you won a playoff series, I wasn't even born yet? On top of knowing that, now you have to look at me. Signed, LaMelo Ball. P.S. You have also lost 9 consecutive playoff series, and Giannis wanting to stay in Milwaukee gives him about as much of a chance to win a championship as my dad has of never saying anything stupid for the rest of his life.
I'm not friends with her. I don't even see that. I don't even see it.
It's the NBA playoffs on your home floor in an elimination game. Everything is on the line. And you lay an egg so rotten it cracks before it even gets out of your ass. No Bucks starter had more than 8 points. No Bucks player had more than 8 points. The team went 25 of 76 from the field. They never scored more than 20 points in a quarter. It's like, how are you even this bad without trying to be bad? Though 66 points is not the lowest total on this list. This deer has evolved from a creepy, crazy-eyed venison to what looks like a really cute kid. Bango gets his name from when longtime Bucks announcer Eddie Doucette coined the phrase on long-range basket. Funny, I thought the name was from Office Space.
Oh, you know what I'm talking about. Oh.
The NBA's newest stadium, Fiserv Forum, looks like a giant airplane wing. 2018 will be the arena's first year as it has the largest scoreboard in the NBA. Fiserv is a data processing company that bought the naming rights. Basically, every time you swipe your credit card, they get paid, just like Giannis did when the Bucks smartly locked him up at $25 million a year, and that's a bargain if you ask me. The most nefarious thing the Bucks have done was have guard OJ Mayo get popped for PEDs. Mayo got nabbed for using DHEA in 2011, and then in 2016, OJ was banned for 2 years for pissing hot on an undisclosed substance. Maybe he was putting extra juice in his mayo. Isn't it great that you have your best shot at a title since 1971, and of course, the whole season gets Gobert? I can't think of a more obvious sign from the universe that it's time to give up. Remember when you traded the rights to Dirk Nowitzki for Robert Tractor Trailer? Or when Dr. J literally refused to play for you? Ever since Giannis took the leap, all anyone has talked about is when he's gonna leave Cheesetown. That has to bother you.
Bango the Buck, Milwaukee. The name is good, the body is good, the in-game entertainment is good. The only thing preventing this mascot from being perfect is a more intimidating face instead of one that looks like a literal deer in headlights. Rating 8 out of 10. Milwaukee Bucks, Giannis Antetokounmpo. The choice came down to Giannis or Kareem, and I went with Giannis because he stuck around instead of leaving for the brighter lights. Imagine rooting for a player who changes teams in free agency. Ha, not me. Anyway, Giannis is why teams take flyers on raw, unproven foreign prospects every year, always hoping to find a diamond in the rough, and by God did Milwaukee find one here. He kind of sucked his first few years, but then it started to click in year 3. Then he developed into an all-star. Then, before you could blink, he became an MVP caliber player, winning 2 back-to-back. The only thing missing for him was a ring, and after several playoff disappointments, Giannis won that coveted ring and Finals MVP in 2021. Now, at just age 27, he already has an all-time great resume and is on pace to end up as a top 10 to 15 player ever, barring injury. He can also probably give himself a reach around with his freakishly long arms. God damn, this guy's so lucky. Milwaukee Bucks, Robert Trailer. Trailer is really just a sad story all around. He battled weight issues throughout his life, which eventually ended way too prematurely at the age of 34 in 2011. His NBA career is most known for being the guy who was traded by Dallas to Milwaukee in exchange for Dirk Nowitzki on draft night in 1998. While Dirk would go on to become a legend, Trailer lasted just 2 years in Milwaukee, putting up meager numbers. He would bounce around the league for a few more years before playing overseas until his Milwaukee Milwaukee Bucks. If Giannis was 6'2" instead of 6'11", he would be working at Red Robin. Giannis is a monster, but despite his dominance, I still don't fear him in a half-court setting late in games because he can't shoot. Let's be real, Milwaukee's 2021 title was lucky. LeBron was hurt, Anthony Davis was hurt, Kawhi was hurt, Harden was hurt, Kyrie was hurt. If KD was 1 inch back, they would have lost in the second round. Giannis goes down, and the team still won 2 crucial conference finals games without him. The Bucks are never winning another title with Giannis, and maybe that's because the team takes after its co-owner Aaron Rodgers, always choking in the playoffs outside of 1 year.
The 2001 Milwaukee Bucks came out of nowhere. Milwaukee hadn't seriously contended in over a decade, and they opened that season looking even worse than usual, hitting a 3-9 record around Thanksgiving 2000. Coach George Karl shredded his players, privately and in the press. He called them irresponsible millionaire crybabies. Soon thereafter, things turned for the better. Why? It wasn't because GM Ernie Grunfeld made some big midseason move. He'd already invested plenty of owner/senator/department store magnate Herb Kohl's money to cement this core. It was just that these guys clicked. They figured it out. The 01 Bucks began with Glenn Big Dog Robinson. The Bucks' #1 pick in 1994 weathered some tough seasons in Milwaukee, but led their turnaround season by scoring more than ever and by meeting Karl's challenge to play a more well-rounded game. Robinson had another rising all-star by his side. 25-year-old Ray Allen already ranked among the game's best shooters, with potential to become the next great NBA two-guard. Veteran point guard Sam Cassell set the table for Milwaukee's top scorers and had the championship experience to take his own big shots with confidence. Around their big three, Milwaukee had a sturdy, stalwart center in Irvin Johnson, they had a tantalizing young sixth man in Tim Thomas, and they had a fan favorite glue guy in Scott Williams, who brought additional championship experience from his days with the MJ Bulls. This guy will matter later on. This Bucks squad didn't defend much, but as the 01 season progressed, they shared the ball and ripped nets from downtown, scoring more efficiently than even the starriest NBA offenses. The Bucks rode this wave of torrid, beautiful basketball into a first-round win over the Orlando Magic. They survived a surprisingly close second-round series against the Charlotte Hornets and reached the 2001 Eastern Conference Finals against league MVP Allen Iverson and his scrappy, battle-worn Philadelphia 76ers. With Iverson ailing, the Bucks stole a game in Philly, then pulled ahead 2-1 at home. The Bucks, a franchise that hadn't won a playoff series since the 1980s, that could have left Milwaukee if Herb Kohl didn't save them, that made zero meaningful noise in the 90s, now stood 2 wins away from facing Kobe and Shaq in the 2001 NBA Finals. And then came a collapse, or really a nesting doll of multiple collapses. The 2001 Eastern Conference Finals remain quite controversial. We don't need to relitigate every bit of officiating angst, but we can agree that things fell apart for the Bucks, and refs were a part of that story. Milwaukee led 2-1 against a wrecked Sixers lineup. Iverson in particular carried an injury on basically every body part. But Philly took games 4 and 5. Iverson was available if not efficient, Dikembe Mutombo overwhelmed Irvin Johnson down low, and the clutch moments tipped toward Philly. In Game 4, it was Iverson fighting his way to the rim and the free throw line to hold off a late Bucks rally. At the end of Game 5, Philadelphia's Aaron McKie gifted Milwaukee 2 thick bricks at the free throw line, and then on defense he lost track of Glenn Robinson. But Big Dog whiffed his open game winner, and Ray Allen rimmed out this buzzer-beating tip.
And the Sixers win to take a 3-2 lead.
3-2 Sixers. Then there's Game 6. On paper, it looks like a decisive momentum shift back toward the Bucks. Ray Allen went laser mode. 9 threes, 41 points, and a personal 17-0 run in the first half of a double-digit Bucks victory. But it wasn't so simple. Milwaukee had been simmering about calls all series. Robinson lit into the refs after getting ejected back in Game 4. Well, in the process of winning Game 6, the Bucks boiled over. They were mad that the Sixers nearly came back with a heap of Iverson free throws in the fourth quarter. They were mad that veteran forward Scott Williams got ejected for a flagrant foul, which then got him suspended for Game 7. So the Bucks entered their decisive game, missing their starting small forward and also real grumpy. Grumpy and loud enough in public that both Allen and Coach Karl drew fines for accusing the NBA of conspiring to put the super popular Iverson in the finals. In any event, without Williams, with Iverson finding an unshakable groove, with Mutombo bullying Johnson down low, and without much scoring outside their big three, Milwaukee went down pretty easy in Game 7. But don't let that conclusion eclipse a fantastic, surprising Bucks season. League best offense, rock solid core, and perhaps going forward an us against the world ethos to ensure coach and stars stayed on task. Well, let me start by saying one new player shouldn't ruin a good NBA team. It doesn't work that way. If that seems to be the case, then the team was probably fragile to begin with. Okay, so in the summer of 2001, GM Ernie Grunfeld did nothing significant until right before training camp, when he suddenly traded away the beloved Williams and a pick that became Josh Smith just to clear space for... Hello. Mere days before the season began, Milwaukee signed Anthony Mason to a multi-year deal. Grunfeld knew the super tough, super brash forward from his time with the hellacious 1990s Knicks. The GM knew what Mason brought, both as a dynamic player and, for better and worse, a bold locker room presence. Since leaving New York, Mason had dabbled as a prime offensive option in Charlotte and played one surprise all-star season in Miami. And now, here he was in Milwaukee, turning 35, exhibiting the fitness level of, well, someone who had waited until late October to sign with the team. Mace played a healthy, statistically decent 01-02 season in Milwaukee, but swapping him in for Scott Williams shook that harmonious offense of the prior year. Coach Karl granted Mason team-high minutes and an excess of ball handling responsibility. And, as was his tendency, Mace made some noise. On a team with a pre-established pecking order, Mace wanted the ball more, and said as much without apology. He criticized the Bucks' practice habits. He was overheard insisting Karl bench one of his, quote, jump shooter teammates, somehow turning the Bucks' best feature into an epithet. But while Mason's disruption made him an easy scapegoat, there was plenty other shit going on. For one, the Bucks had injuries. Allen had never missed a game before 2001, but battled knee tendonitis all season. Robinson sat 16 games himself. Tim Thomas and Sam Cassell were both known to be playing hurt. And then there is Coach Karl. To the extent that Karl's vicious rhetoric motivated the Bucks' 2001 turnaround, it came off a lot worse while they plunged in 02. The Bucks had a solid enough record as the All-Star break approached, but after a loss to those Sixers, Karl fumed, labeling his stars stubborn and selfish, and proclaiming someone needed to be traded or fired, maybe himself. Karl kept snarling after the break, so much that Ray Allen's mom got concerned, and the Bucks kept losing into springtime. A 5-game slide in early April, including a blowout loss to the awful Cleveland Cavaliers, dropped the Bucks to a stunning break-even record. Still, Milwaukee just needed one win in Game 82 to hold the playoff 8 seed. But that night in Detroit, they got crushed by the new hot team in the Central Division. A year after they almost made the finals, the Bucks fell from first place in mid-March to out of playoff contention in April. Since the 16-team playoff format was introduced in 1983, no team had ever sunk that deep that fast. When you make that sort of history, you gotta shake things up. Glenn Robinson was the longest tenured member of Milwaukee's Big Three, present through bad times and good. But Big Dog, like several others, had bickered with Coach Carl, and his relationship with his co-star Allen wasn't great either. Robinson also entered that offseason embroiled in a grim domestic violence scandal. Late in the summer of '02, Grunfeld traded Robinson to the Atlanta Hawks, returning an older and inferior player, Tony Kukoc, plus an '03 draft pick. Carl approved of the chance to remake team chemistry and to dump Robinson's big contract. The Bucks now appeared to be Ray Allen's team. That went okay on the court. Trading Robinson certainly didn't make the Bucks better, but Allen proved a capable first option. And then, before the deadline of the '02-03 season, the middling Bucks stunned their fan base. They traded Ray Allen to Seattle, another member of their erstwhile Big Three. A young, electric, rising star was just gone. Why on earth would they do that? The coach, George Karl, said Allen was nothing but trouble. Allen said he grew to despise the coach, although later claimed it wasn't so much animosity as it was Karl's angst that the star was close with team owner Herb Kohl. For what it's worth, Kohl did have to approve the Allen deal, but he came to regret doing so, while Ray enjoyed a long and brilliant career elsewhere. He admitted as much years later. And even in the moment, the trade sucked shit. Milwaukee gave up Allen, some other players, and a first-round draft pick. From the Supersonics, they received Desmond Mason, who was a young, exciting dunk contest champ, but ultimately not that great. And they got Gary Payton, an established star, albeit a 34-year-old, playing on an expiring contract, and maybe still harboring a grudge against Karl from when he coached the Sonics. Oh, and Payton was a true point guard, just like Sam Cassell. The Bucks traded their best player for a guy who played the same position as their next best player. Very weird. If the trade made any basketball sense, it was right here. Buried on Milwaukee's old conference final team was a diamond in the rough. Michael Redd had been a second-round pick and played only garbage time as a rookie in 2001. But since then, Redd had refashioned his skill set to become one of the NBA's best three-point shooters. The smooth lefty progressed from bench scorer to starter to, by 2003, a legitimate Ray Allen successor, the Bucks' next backcourt star. So, fine, onward. A kinda lopsided new core led Milwaukee to basically the same record as the prior year. The Bucks snuck into the 2003 playoffs, and in round one, they kinda gave the New Jersey Nets a scare. A critical last-second finish in Game 3, Rodney Rogers in the clutch, Payton missing at the buzzer, went New Jersey's way. The Nets pulled it out in 6. So, Bucks, you traded away your two best players to appease the coach. Your performance basically did not change. What do you do now? Step 1, trade away the third guy, and Irvin Johnson too. This was just an awful deal. Upon being traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves, Sam Cassell immediately enjoyed an all-star resurgence. Milwaukee didn't get nearly enough in return for him. But maybe Ernie Grunfeld had something else up his sleeve. Oh. Days later, Grunfeld left to take the Washington Wizards job. Okie doke. Longtime Bucks employee Larry Harris got a promotion, and in his first significant act as GM, watched Gary Payton walk away in free agency for nothing. Peyton was the big name Milwaukee acquired for sacrificing Ray Allen, and his whole Buck career was 28 games and a playoff defeat. Bummer, but now Harris had a clean slate. It would be his task to completely reinvent the team for Coach Carter. Oh, okay. The coach who once insisted Milwaukee either trade the stars or fire him got it both ways. After detonating their big three in a succession of poor trades, Milwaukee sent Carl packing too. If all of this seemed like the work of a distracted, confused franchise, well, that might be because Herb Kohl was in talks to sell the Bucks to some other guy. The name rings a bell. That deal fell through, though. Kohl retained ownership of a team well positioned to zero out and rebuild. But here's the thing about Herb Kohl, the quality that makes this collapse distinct. The man would not pull the plug. Call it pride, call it stubbornness, and don't forget that the team once did flirt with leaving Milwaukee, but Kohl's franchise rejected the incentives to tank for the whole next decade, an era vacillating between mild promise and mild disappointment. It began in 2003-2004. Just the third season after a near finals berth went fine. The Bucks got a hot young coach in Terry Porter. Red fully broke out as an all-star. Tim Thomas departed in a sort of lateral trade for Keith Van Horn and his large outfits. While Milwaukee hadn't lucked into any of the true 2003 draft prizes, they did enjoy the talents of rookie point guard TJ Ford. Ford looked awesome until a horrifying spinal injury ended his season and cost him all of the next one too. The shorthanded Bucks claimed an 0-4 playoff berth, but ran into the eventual champs in the first round. Here began the cycle. Milwaukee felt they had enough to run it back in 05, but injuries hurt them and Porter got fired. The Bucks sunk to just 30 wins, that stinky gray area between playoff contention and prime lottery odds, the fate of non-tankers. But Milwaukee got super lucky that offseason. A scant 6% chance of winning the draft lottery paid off. With their unexpected number 1 pick, the Bucks selected Andrew Bogut, a very solid center, albeit not one of the superstar point guards who defined that draft. Milwaukee felt set at point guard with TJ Ford returning from injury. Bogut, Ford, a re-signed Michael Redd, and newly added Bobby Simmons made a nice core for new coach Terry Stotts. Back to the playoffs, where Milwaukee fell to the Pistons again, but hey, an uptick. And then a downturn. More moves, more injuries, another coach fired, another losing record, and this time some bad lottery luck. Milwaukee missed out on a tip-top draft pick and one of these guys, and since they already employed Bogut, passed on picking Joakim Noah to instead select John Leon, a dude who absolutely did not want to play in Milwaukee, battled injuries and inconsistency, and then left town after just 1 year. Yet again, a bad but not quite bad enough season, another missed opportunity to draft the best of the best in 2008, another disappointing lottery pick who didn't last in Milwaukee. And in the middle of that 08-09 season, Milwaukee lost its only all-star caliber player of this era. Michael Redd tore up his knee in January 2009. Redd would never again be the same player and departed Milwaukee a couple seasons later. Still, the Bucks did not empty out. The next few seasons sort of blur together. Milwaukee traded young guys for vets. They traded vets for vets. They spent pretty serious money to plug in one free agent after another, after another, after another. All the while, Milwaukee used a succession of mid-tier lottery picks to draft players who were fine but didn't fulfill their potential as Bucks. In the process, they passed on a couple future big-time stars. This is a bland, featureless, consistently at or just below average era of Bucks basketball. No stars, no home run draft picks, No playoff excitement except one little head fake of a run in 2010. At long last, 2013-2014 was rock bottom. Before that season, GM John Hammond used yet another middle-of-the-draft selection on a mysterious youngster and acquired veterans who didn't make a difference, plus one kinda nobody recent second-rounder. Fans broadcast their exhaustion with a billboard. Winning takes balls. You need good lottery odds to draft the best players, and to secure good lottery odds, you need to stop patching holes and allow a tank to run its course. Well, Milwaukee didn't heed the call to tank on purpose, but the tank came for them just the same. Bad moves and bad luck combined to deliver the 2014 Bucks a franchise-low 15 wins. Around the end of that season, 79-year-old Herb Cole sold his franchise to some hedge fund, private equity, billionaire type guys. And then there were none. The abrupt collapse and demolition of this team gave way to long-term rot, and at last, the sale in 2014. This low point comes with a couple opposing punchlines. Bottoming out didn't pay off. The Bucks got to pick second in 2014, but selected Jabari Parker, yet another player who failed to meet his potential and whose career fell short of players drafted beneath him. But all that muddling in the middle somehow did pay off. This 2014 roster, this dismal, accidental 15-win flop, included a future All-Star in Chris Middleton, and a future multi-MVP winner, Finals MVP, and sure-thing Hall of Famer, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Two key components of the 2021 NBA champions. What can we learn from the collapse of the Milwaukee Bucks? Well, some great teams are volatile and might incinerate at any second. They may burn for longer than fans want because lottery odds don't reward an owner's dogged refusal to slash costs and lose on purpose. But buried in the ashes, you just might find a diamond or two, or a whole ring's worth of diamonds. I don't know, man. Collapses can be really weird.